Yes, okay. Well, let me so I think I will have to try to race through this in about 15 minutes then. So very briefly, Fiona contacted me asking if we could support training of subsistence fishing villages in Tanzania and Zanzibar to train them in new methods to be more productive. And we, of course, I said yes because that's what we do. Any place we can find people who can find funding to do it, which is, I explained that's essentially impossible, but that's essentially what we do. Because I've worked with subsistence fishing communities or lived with them, dived with them for 70 years myself. And I know that these are people who are the poorest of the poor in their own countries. They're just trying to survive and they take everything they can because they don't have any real choice. But they know they're being destructive, that they're wiping out their own resources, but they don't have any choice and they want to be in general once they want to understand the ecosystems that they manage and live from, and they want to be less destructive and more productive, but they don't have the knowledge of the training and how to do so. So anyway, what we do, the Global Coral Reef Alliance, we're a nonprofit organization that tries to work where we can with community managed coastal resources. Those are very few. There are very few places in the world where the communities manage their own resources. That power has been taken away from them almost everywhere. And that's one of the factors involved in destruction. That it's not that they're overfishing their resources themselves, but when their resources get opened up to outsiders, they essentially get wiped out almost immediately. And that's what we see happening in Tanzania, among other places where fishermen don't have fish to catch, but they can see on the horizon foreign fishing fleets with drift nets and long lines and all that, wiping out the resources that they have to live from. So they can't go out there and compete with them, and they can't catch any food as a result, but they're doing it also themselves because they have to do that to survive. So, the question is, how can we regenerate ecosystems that are collapsing from overfishing above, from pollution at the same time, and being wiped out from climate change? And of course, coral reefs are the first to go, but seagrasses and mangroves are next on the list, among others. But so basically, if we don't regenerate coastal ecosystem biomass, biodiversity, and the function, the services they provide people, we're never going to have the blue economy that governments are endlessly talking about at international meetings, about how the sea is going to give them money. Although how that's going to happen while we're destroying everything isn't too clear. So what we hope to do in Tanzania is to set up training workshops at three levels. The first would be with government, coastal, and fisheries managers with regard to climate change adaptation. I'll touch on that a little later. Training workshops with students at the University of Zanzibar and Dar es Salaam, and these would be students in marine science and in sustainable ecosystem management, architecture, urban planning, and other related fields on regenerating local ecosystems, coral reefs, seagrasses, mangroves, et cetera, and mariculture projects, including seaweeds and other things. And then hands-on training with workshops with local communities that focus on growing some of the things that used to be in their waters and now have vanished that they really want to have because they live off them. So that's our goal, is to set up these workshops, and Fiona's been working with the Rotary Club to try to raise funds to do so. We're part of the way there. Now, again, there's not much time, so let me race through what we do. The training is in a technology we call biorock technology. It's we can also call marine electrotherapy, and we use extremely low electrical currents that are so low you can't feel them, and they are in the beneficial range. Everyone, of course, is freaked out about high voltage and high amperage and high frequency currents with good reason. But all of life is based on electricity at a very low and safe levels. And in fact, at those levels, it's extremely healthy. It's life-giving, as a matter of fact, and all life is based on that. So we're operating in that range, and what we're doing is we're greatly increasing the settlement, the growth, the biodiversity, the health, and the resistance to extreme stress of all marine organisms we have looked at. So with trickle charges of electricity in the right range. And so that way we can keep coastal ecosystems alive where they would die, and we can use solar panels, for instance, as a source of those currents, and we can regenerate ecosystems that have died and have not recovered at all by themselves. So that's I'll show you some pictures of that quickly in the next few minutes. The key point is this works in all marine ecosystems: coral reefs, grasses, salt marshes, oyster reefs, mussel reefs, mangroves. So what we also do is we regenerate the habitat, as I will show you in the pictures ahead, for fisheries, the shelter, but also the food supply, because we're actually growing all species and providing the natural food. We're not feeding these ecosystems. They generate their own food. So this creates a more productive and sustainable mariculture that can be designed for any particular species. I don't have time to get into detail, but we also grow back severely eroded beaches at record rates with this technology, and we grow reefs that match sea level rise. So that's unlike a concrete or rock wall. Okay, so let me show you some pictures here. What we do is we grow solid rock in the sea. This piece is from the Maldives. It's about 2 or 3 years of growth. We build an iron framework structure. We apply electricity to it. It does not rust, does not deteriorate. It's completely protected because of the electricity. And then we grow solid rock around it. And this rock is about 2 or 3 times harder than ordinary concrete. That's growing from the sea, from naturally dissolved minerals. That piece is from the Maldives. Now, the piece that you see, sorry, beg pardon, in the upper left there was not from the Maldives. The rest are. That piece was grown in Louisiana near the mouth of the Mississippi River in 1976 by Wolf Hilberts, who originally invented this technology, trying to produce building materials in the sea. His idea was to grow solid structural material in the ocean and then make buildings with it. Now, what he found was that this piece here is that oysters settled on it and grew to adult size in 3 months. And that's that piece you see there in the background. And this is a steel metal basket he wired up for the structure. And it was filled spontaneously by oysters that settled there by themselves and grew to adult size. There was no rust on the steel when it was taken out of the water. It was bright and shiny as new, but this basket then sat outdoors in someone's garden in Vancouver for 20 years before this photograph was taken. That's when the rusting happened. So you can see right away the benefits we get for oysters, which are a very valuable product in all coastal areas of the world, and 95% or more of them are gone. They've been wiped out by overharvesting. When we grow them with electricity, and this is from a Superfund toxic waste site in New York City, the controls, the ones not getting electricity over the whole growing season, they grew only from 20 millimeters to about 25. They grew about 5 millimeters. The ones that were getting electricity grew 9 times faster in length, also in width, also in thickness. So 9 times, 9 times, 9 times greater volume. And when we ran them through the winter, the controls, 93% of them died, the ones not getting electricity, and they shrank in size because the shells were dissolving in icy water in New York City Harbor. The ones getting electricity kept growing all winter long. They never stopped, and 100% of them survived. And that's unprecedented. You can grow oysters right through the winter. So that was amazing. These are mussels on the center. We applied electrical current, and these are spontaneously settling mussels. This one got no electricity here. This got just a trickle. With that, we applied to coral reefs. This is a site in Indonesia where the reef died from high temperatures, bleaching in 1998, and 10 years later, the same site. And almost all these corals are one that spontaneously settled and grew. We didn't do anything there. What we did is we built biorock reefs down below the dead reef on the sand in front of them. And this was a site that was barren sand with a few broken rubble, broken fragments of coral skeleton, but no live corals or fish. This is a 4-year-old structure we built. We transplanted a few pieces of broken coral onto it. Those have grown into these immense colonies. And these soft corals spontaneously settled. The fish of many kinds moved in. And we now have much higher biodiversity than we had before because the entire reef between the reefs we built and the mainland grew back by themselves because of the electrical field attracting the settlement. The beach that was behind it, which had eroded away, grew back as well. And it changed color from black sand to white sand because of all the materials coming off the reef. New sand was produced by algae, whereas before it had been volcanic sand. So it grew back the beach. We weren't expecting that. This is an example in the Maldives, the lowest country in the world, which these are reefs we grew that grew back severely eroded beaches. And this entire reef we saved from dying from bleaching. That's our reef here. That's a new beach we grew. When we began, there was nothing there. The buildings were collapsing into the sea. The reef in front had 99% coral mortality from bleaching, but our reef survived the bleaching. So the electricity gave them the strength to resist the damage. So that was the only remaining live reef in the Maldives for many years, and the only one full of fish right in front of a natural beach. All the rest had rock walls in front of them to prevent the beach from washing away. So this is what we do. It's an example in Indonesia, a structure just beginning to grow limestone. The corals grew up, the seagrass grew up, and we grew an entire beach back in months, literally, naturally, without any dredging or dumping. It's the only marine construction material that's growing. As I said, you can grow it up centimeters a year. You can keep up with sea level rise. It repairs itself. This is an area that was damaged in Bali by a boat that hit it, and a year later, the damaged area grew back. You grow seagrass. This is in the Mediterranean, and we're growing seagrass on bare rock, which is thought to be impossible. They require sediment for their roots. We grew them. We had such tremendous root growth with the electrical current that they actually attached to rocks, shrimps, crabs, fish, and everything moved in, and we created mini ecosystems literally in months in a place where seagrass couldn't grow. So I can give other examples. I don't want to. We're running out of time, so I won't show a video of seagrass we grew in the Bahamas, but we grew seagrass and corals and dense fish populations. We can grow these structures any size or shape, so we make structures that are designed for oysters, lobsters, octopus, or different species of fish that is each looking for a different sort of habitat to hide in. Here's an example in salt marsh. This is in New York City. We're using a solar panel here. Those are the oysters I showed data from were growing over here. Here we're growing salt marsh, and the salt marsh we grow with electricity grows twice as fast in height, many times denser in terms of the number of branches. It flowers earlier. The root growth is so prolific that it built up a beach that survived Hurricane Sandy. We've been doing this since 2007 at this site. And the bottom sediment was raised about 6 inches because so many mussels were attracted and grew in the base of the salt marsh we were growing using these solar panels. So this is a site in Borneo that we want to do the same with. It's an illegally logged mangrove with the fish ponds, and what we wanted to do, we never could because we never could find the funding, was to turn that into an orangutan sanctuary. And our point is, with this technology, coastal communities can regenerate their coral reefs, their seagrasses, their fisheries habitat, and their very shorelines that are washing away from sea level rise. Right now, what we do is we have perverse subsidies for the blue water fishing fleets that are out there stripping the ocean bare, with, as I said, in Tanzania and all around Africa and all around the world. They're taking everything with the fine nets and the long lines and things. And governments pay them to do that, to destroy the resource. And our view is simply that these resources should be used to invest in coastal communities to manage and regenerate their own resources for their own long-term benefit. This is an example of the kind of workshop we've held. That's me talking to the villagers and fishermen in Vanuatu, one of the poorest countries in the world, and working with the kids, growing reefs, showing them to transplanting corals. This is an example of biorock building material we can produce, so people can actually grow building materials in the sea in these coastal communities and protect their resources and be much more productive. So we hope to help train people in Tanzania at the government level, at the student and research level, and the village and community level to basically develop a sustainable blue economy by training them in new concepts and new technologies that we think they can get. But they're not going to be able to apply what they know if they don't have the resources, because it takes money for solar panels and everything else. We recognize that farmers to become cash crop farmers instead of subsistence farmers need to have access to loans to buy seeds and tools and chemicals and so forth. But we don't provide that opportunity to fishing communities. Instead, we provide money to the people destroying the resource, but not to the people who really need it the most, which are the subsistence fishing communities in the coast around the world we're seeing their resources vanish in front of their eyes. And we need to help them and put them in charge of regrowing what they've lost. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Any questions?
It's amazing.
Do you have any questions?
Is there a Rotary Club in Tanzania involved in this project also?
Yes, Rotarex and the Rotary Club.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you.